You've probably heard on May 16th, Ledger launched a new service named Ledger Recover. The goal? To handle the storage and security for your 24-word recovery phrase on your behalf. Very quickly, the crypto community seized upon this news, and reactions were intense. Some are even talking about a new Ledger scandal, just 3 years after the infamous customer data leak. To top it all off, even CZ, the CEO of Binance, has chimed in on the story. We wanted to do things right here at GA Crypto, so we took the time to fully understand this new feature before making a video about it. A lot of things were said in the heat of the moment about this topic, often with a fair amount of generalization and shortcuts. So, can we still trust Ledger to secure our crypto? Is our precious private key in danger? We're going to break it down for you in this video. As you know, one of the biggest challenges when you start dealing with crypto and set up a hardware wallet like Ledger Nano X, for example, is managing the infamous recovery phrase, or seed phrase. These are 12 or 24 words you need to write down on a piece of paper. And let's be honest, when you explain this to someone who is new to crypto, they run for the hills. We've all seen the reaction from someone we know when told. So you're going to write down what shows on the screen on this little piece of paper. If you make a mistake, or if anyone gets access to this list, you'll lose all your money. And no one can do anything for you. There's no forget password in this wonderful new world of crypto. People aren't used to managing their money themselves anymore and taking full responsibility for it. They want to delegate that to third parties and rely on them to put all the necessary measures in place so they never lose their funds. Ledger has perfectly understood this barrier to adoption, and their Ledger Recover feature is attempting to address this issue. The principle is very easy to understand. When creating your wallet on a Ledger device, you can choose to offload the responsibility of your seed, that is, the 24 words, to a certain provider. In this case, there are 3 providers. There's Ledger itself, CoinCover, which is a leader in crypto asset security, and EscrowTech, a company specializing in securing sensitive digital data. For your information at first, only Ledger Nano X will benefit from this. As Pascal Gauthier points out, their goal is to extend this service to all recent Ledger devices in the future. However, the old classic Ledger Nano S will not be able to support this service. This is likely due to a lack of memory or power of this hardware to perform the many calculations required to use Ledger Recover. If you choose to use this Ledger Recover service, in the event of losing your hardware wallet, you can ask these entities to recover your wallet on a new Ledger device after verifying your identity. The risks associated with preserving your seed phrase are no longer on you, but are delegated to specialized companies. This optional service comes in the form of subscription, which should cost about $10 per month for the user. The implementation of this service could have gone unnoticed, but unfortunately for the Ledger, this wasn't the case. So let's go back through the history of this affair. It all starts on May 2nd, 2023, when the English blog Wired publishes an article on the theme of growing hardware wallet sales following the fall of FTX. We learned that Ledger is about to launch its famous new service called Ledger Recover. The CEO of the French unicorn, Pascal Gauthier, even promoted this article on his personal Twitter account on the same day. So no, Ledger didn't want to hide anything from its users and sneak in an update as we've seen speculated here and there. They've been talking about it for several months. Now we could discuss their communication method. We'll get back to that. So initially, this publication didn't stir much of a fuss. But on May 16th, when Ledger published the new Nano X firmware numbered 2.2.1, some users began to express outrage on Twitter about the new feature. What really lit the fuse was this simple little sentence announcing the availability of the Recover service in the speculations of the embedded software of the Ledger Nano X. Later on, Pascal Gauthier will explain during an interview that this update shouldn't have been sent at that time. He'll mention it was a mistake on the part of his team. On the 16th, and especially the 17th of May, Twitter ignites, and Ledger's new feature receives a wave of indignation. So why such strong reactions? Well, first, there was a lot of criticism about the service itself, as it takes away self-custody from its users and requires identity verification, the infamous KYC. For many maximalists, this goes against the primary goal of Bitcoin, which is to eliminate any need for trust in monetary exchanges. There were also criticisms and concerns about how Ledger devices operate, and particularly about the potential ability to extract the seed from the wallet, which seems impossible until now. Indeed, most users thought it was physically impossible to remove the private key from the secure element of the ledger. Some users therefore felt deceived. Let's clear something up right away to reassure everyone. The only thing a Ledger device allows, and always has allowed, with or without the recover function, is that no one can access your private key without an action from you on the device. As soon as the Ledger software wants to touch the secret stored on your key, you have to press the two little buttons. Nothing has changed on that front, and the Ledger teams have been very clear about that. The launch of this service was planned for soon, but in response to the reaction from the crypto community, Ledger decided to make the recovery services code open source. So they announced that its launch will only happen when the program is truly publicly auditable. So to be able to judge the relevance of the criticisms made against this service, it's important to understand how it works. Don't trust, verify, as they say, right? Let's see what's really going on under the hood here. In order to reduce the need for trust given to each provider, the private key is not simply transmitted as is. It's first divided in certain ways to create 3 fragments, which we'll call shards. A specific cryptographic method is used so that 2 out of the 3 existing fragments are enough to regenerate the entire wallet key. This is what we called a threshold secret sharing system, or threshold. In other words, if you choose to use Ledger Recover, your seed will be transformed into 3 fragments. To generate the original seed and therefore regain access to your crypto, you'll need to have 2 of the 3 existing fragments. To create these fragments, Ledger Recover uses a well-known cryptographic method called Shamir's secret sharing, which you will often find under the acronym SSSS. This algorithm was invented by the cryptographer Shamir in 1979. Shamir is also known for being one of the founding fathers of the famous RSA key system with Ron Rivest and Leonard Adleman, another asymmetric cryptography method still widely used to this day. Shamir's secret sharing allows a secret key to be divided into several fragments in such a way that only a specific number of these fragments combined together can reconstruct the original key. To understand how SSSS works, let's make an analogy. Imagine that the seed giving access to your crypto is located in an unbreakable safe. To guarantee the security of your seed, the safe's manufacturer has designed a system with 3 locks, each requiring a different key. Each key is attributed to a trusted keeper. However, it isn't enough to have just one key to open the safe. You have to insert 2 keys at the same time to unlock the mechanism and access your seed. A single key provides no clues about what is in the safe or about the other required keys. So at least 2 keepers have to agree to be able to open the safe. That's how Shamir's secret sharing, or SSSS, works. So contrary to what has been said here and there, no. The seed is not crudely divided into 3 overlapping pieces. What we call shards or fragments are complex elements involved in Shamir's key sharing. Note that this cryptographic method is already implemented on Trezor Model T hardware wallets since August 7, 2019. The difference with the Ledger's implementation is that in the case of Trezor, the fragments are given directly to you and are not sent to trusted third parties. But let's get back to the Ledger Recover. Once your seed is divided in this way, each fragment is then encrypted with a symmetric key. This means that the same key is used to encrypt and decrypt the seed fragments. Each encrypted fragment is then transmitted via a secure channel to each provider tasked with storing them. These secure channels are likely established on a protocol similar to ECDH, in conjunction with an authentication protocol to prevent this sensitive information from being intercepted. The fragments are then individually stored by each of the 3 providers using what is called an HSM for Hardware Security Module. Basically, these are devices that securely store their fragments, especially to withhold both software attacks and physical attacks on the hardware. So once again, contrary to what has been said here, no, the seeds are not crudely sent to the cloud. Once the process is completed, each provider has one of the 3 existing fragments. 2 of these fragments are necessary to regenerate the wallet's seed. Therefore, it's impossible for a provider alone to recover your crypto without your agreement. However, if 2 of the providers agree, they then have enough information to regenerate your wallet. So here, some users immediately thought of a disaster scenario where a government would want to seize the user's funds for X or Y reasons and would call on Ledger to activate the recover function. On this point, Ledger has clarified that the providers were chosen in different jurisdictions to resist regulatory capture as much as possible. However, yes, if the justice system asks Ledger to do something, they will have to comply. But here, I think no one will be surprised. According to the information provided by Ledger, the process used in these services seem obviously to be very robust. The cryptographic primitives used are well known and recognized. However, some developers and cryptographers have raised concerns about the real utility of the symmetric encryption applied to each fragment. Indeed, as Nicolas Dorier explains in his tweet, the developer behind the BTC Pay server software, since this encryption is performed with a single key, available on all Ledger devices, it doesn't seem to be of great cryptographic utility in the overall process. Let's be clear, this symmetric encryption story isn't a flaw. The question is rather about the utility of this additional encryption, on top of all the other cryptographic methods. As we've mentioned before, and it bears repeating, this seed storage service is entirely optional. If you don't pay for the subscription, and if you don't physically confirm on your hardware wallet that you want to subscribe to Ledger Recover, then nothing changes for you compared to before. However, some users on Twitter were concerned about the possibility of extracting the seed from the Ledger device, even if they haven't subscribed to the Recover service, or that they might accidentally activate the feature. No, this won't happen. If you activate Ledger Recover, you'll know because you have to validate the operation directly on your key, like a standard transaction, and especially because you have to go through a rather heavy KYC procedure, which will allow you to regain access to your funds in case of a problem. Actually, the problem probably comes from Ledger's communication, which has always promoted its devices as tamper-proof, which means the device can't be compromised or violated. As this tweet made by the company's official account last year shows, nothing was supposed to be able to extract the private keys from a Ledger, not even an official update. The choice of words might have been clumsy, and combined with the complexity of the subject, it's created some sort of misunderstanding. In fact, it's true that your private key never really leaves your hardware wallet, but the embedded software does have access to it to do a whole bunch of things. When you sign a transaction, for example, with your Ledger or a computer, do you consider that your private key just left the device? No. Well, it's the same thing with Ledger Recover. If you trusted Ledger with your security process when signing a transaction not to disclose your private key, you should even do the same for Ledger Recover. Now, I'm not saying or advising you whether you should use this feature or not, but we're just trying to explain what Ledger has done and to clarify some things, because a lot of nonsense has been said. Actually, what you need to understand is that from the start, since the launch of Ledger several years ago, there's been a certain degree of trust towards the French unicorn because the code used on what's called the secure element has always been closed source. In other words, it's impossible for you to verify part of the software program that runs on the Ledger yourself. So you have to trust the company. And also, let's note it's because it's important. The various certifying organizations mandated for hardware audits, like the ANSSI. There were indeed some valid criticisms from recognized experts in the ecosystem, like Andreas Antonopoulos, for example, who pointed out the phishing opportunities that Ledger just opened up. Indeed, in the months following the launch of this service, we'll likely see fake Ledger Recover sites emerge, asking for the seed to subscribe to this service. Since it's designed for beginners, and because its technical operation is relatively complex, Ledger Recover allows the crafty to imagine a whole range of new social engineering methods. And as you probably know, the vectors of cyber attacks often lie between the chair and the keyboard. Ledger has probably already identified this new risk, as their Ledger Recover announcement page now features a large banner with a warning message for customers. This situation has shown that there are still many questions and misunderstandings about how hardware wallets function and how to properly secure one's crypto. In any case, Ledger's competitors have taken advantage of this whole situation to launch promotional offers in an attempt to capture this new flow of prospects looking for a new hardware wallet. As evidenced by this email campaign sent out by Trezor just a few hours before the drama began, it's fair game. And it all worked very well. In their May 25th press release, Trezor announced a 900% growth in sales within a week. This growth isn't only limited to Trezor. Other small competitors have also seen their sales skyrocket. As explained by the customer service head of the hardware wallet Passports, Foundation recorded its best revenue since the company's inception on May 16, 2023. In response to all this, Pascal Gauthier published an open letter on May 23rd. In it, he admits that Ledger made a communication mistake in announcing their new service and apologizes to their customers. He also announces that Ledger has decided to improve the transparency of its devices by accelerating the open sourcing of most of its code, notably the Ledger operating system and Ledger Recover. He stresses that the security of their wallets doesn't change with this new strategy or with this new service. Their main competitor, Trezor, which already produces full open source hardware wallets, didn't miss the chance to mock Ledger's announcement. But should we worry about our crypto secured with a Ledger? Well, it depends on each person's risk model, and there's nothing new with the introduction of the Recover service. Absolutely nothing. If you were using a ledger, you can keep it. Now, all this drama had its positive side. It helped many people to really understand how their hardware wallet works. Ledger devices are likely the most resistant to physical attacks in the market. They use extremely high security standards, while some of their competitors don't even have a basic secure element. According to their own figures, more than 6 million units have been sold worldwide, and over 20% of all cryptocurrencies are secured by ledgers. In addition to having stood the test of time, Ledger is the only hardware wallet manufacturing company to have a team fully dedicated to pen testing. Indeed, the Don John, as they call it, has significant financial and material resources, with professionals whose sole task is to constantly search for vulnerabilities on Ledger devices. On the other hand, the trust that a user places in this company is inevitably high, since the code used at the core of the hardware wallet is not publicly available. It's closed sourced. In essence, when you buy a Ledger, you trust the company that produces it. It seemed quite obvious, but apparently not given the Ledger Recover drama. Those who didn't like Ledger before still don't like Ledger now. However, it would seem quite odd to change your hardware wallet because of this new feature. We repeat, nothing has changed. It's important to understand that there's no such thing as a perfect hardware wallet. Devices using open source embedded software certainly reduce the need for trust in the producing company, but it's not a panacea. On the flip side, the hardware itself is often much more susceptible to physical attacks. For example, Ledger often likes to point out that it only takes their Don team a few minutes to crack a Trezor hardware wallet if they get their hands on it. The user can never completely eliminate the need to trust the company that produces the hardware wallet, even when the code is 100% open sourced. As they say, if you really don't want to trust anyone, you're going to have to reinvent the universe yourself. Some people will prioritize their individual sovereignty and freedom. If you're one of them, you'll probably do as the Winklevoss brothers did over 10 years ago. They boarded up the windows of their apartment with boxes, removed all computer equipment from the room that they could record or film anything, and then used perfectly balanced casino dice to generate their private key, which they then wrote on pieces of paper. They supposedly have 210,000 Bitcoins secured this way. You can find this anecdote in the book Bitcoin Billionaires by Ben Mesrich. The true OGs secure their Bitcoins in this way, but let's be honest, not everyone can and wants to proceed this way. With the Recover function, Ledger tries to offer an alternative between the full non-custodial system, where you keep your own keys, and that of crypto exchanges, where a single entity keeps all your assets for you. Is the solution perfect? Absolutely not, but exists for those who want it. Consider that there are apparently about 10 million hardware wallet users. This is nothing compared to the 300 or 400 million crypto holders. Over 90% of people still have their assets on exchanges like FTX. Ledger Recover can be a step closer to full non-custodial. Each hardware wallet has its advantages and disadvantages compared to the others. It's therefore appropriate to judge them according to your own risk model and your own personal situation in order to find the one that suits you best. In any case, personally, I continue to use my Ledger and I sleep very well.